Good afternoon, everybody. I guess it's 12. I was going to say a good morning there for a second, but good afternoon, everybody. Let's bring today's committee, the whole meeting together. Welcome to our guests. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Fort Nelson First Nation, as well as the Prophet River First Nation, and recognize the rights that are inherent in our treaty together, and recognize all the cultures that call this region their home. I have a video recording statement. Please be advised that this afternoon's meeting is available to the public to attend virtually and is being streamed and recorded. So are there any additions? I don't have any. Staff? No, Mayor. Council? Thank you. Adoption of the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Enoch. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. This is an opportunity for the public to have comment on anything that might be in our agenda. Is there anybody from the public or anybody attending on the live stream? No? Anybody in the gallery? No? Thank you. Well, we're very lucky today to have a delegation from Deh-Kah Geothermal. I think we'll do a round of introductions, Jim, if you'd like to start with yourself, and because I don't think everybody knows everybody, so it'd be good, I think, to have a round of introductions.
Sure. So I'm Jim Hodson. I'm the CEO of Deh-Tai Limited Partnership. That's the economic development corporation that was established by Fort Nelson First Nation a couple of years ago. One of our projects, as you'll see in a few minutes, is Deh-Kah, the Clark Lake Geothermal Project.
Thanks.
Good day, everybody. My name is Cindy Bond, and I am the Training and Employment Coordinator for Deh-Kah Geothermal. So I'm a proud resident of Fort Nelson First Nation. Very pleased to be living, working, playing, raising my children in the community.
Welcome to our chamber, Senator. Taylor? Oh.
Not mute. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Taylor Bain-Tacosa. I'm a very proud member of the Fort Nelson First Nation. My father is from the Prophet River First Nation, so my parents' traditional territories encompass, I think, a majority of, if not all of, the Northern Rockies regional municipalities. So it's really an honor to be here, and in my role as the community liaison for Deh-Kah Geothermal. And yeah, we have a mighty team of 4. And if Andrea, I don't know if you are able to introduce yourself. There you are.
Hi, sorry, the lighting is off. My name is Andrea Warren. I am a proud member of the Alibu Mi'kmaq First Nation in Newfoundland. I do live in Fort Nelson, BC, and my children are members of the Fort Nelson First Nation. I am the media and communications personnel for Deh-Kah Geothermal, and I'm really excited. I wish I was there in person, but I'm glad to be here on this meeting with you guys.
Well, welcome. I'm Rob Fraser. I'm the mayor. Recently elected and newly returned to the community after 30 years of being away, but my family has lived here since the 60s, and you know, it's home to me, and that's why we're back. And I think, just to be completely transparent, I think I should let everybody know that my wife works for Jim. So as much as he likes to admit that or not, I just want to let everybody know that Colleen works for him as well. Councillor Gerwing?
Yeah, I think I know everyone. Lorraine Gerwing. I've lived here since 1990. We were so happy to move to such a welcoming community. And yeah, and we came for a few years like so many, and have been here since then, raised my kids here. And now I'm just so pleased and proud to be raising my grandkids here too.
And Councillor Kyle Andrews. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Glad to be here. Councillor Brenda Enoch, newly elected. We arrived in Fort Nelson in 1991 after many years along the Alaska Highway from Pink Mountain all the way north to Mount Joe. And it's a beautiful community. I'm very fortunate to be here. Welcome.
Pal?
Jaylene McIver, Corporate Manager. Jody Lisado, Communications. Aaron LaVale, Deputy CAO.
And Scott Berry, CAO. Welcome.
And sitting in our gallery seats? Lisa? Okay.
Hi, Deb Vandersteen. I'm with the Fort Nelson Central College.
And last, often hidden in the back. Thanks, Stacy. Well, Jim, the floor is yours. I think we're all looking forward to an update.
Okay. Prepared a slide deck of about 15 slides. Just let people know what the heck Deh-Tai is all about, who we are and what's in it. And we'll go to our next slide and we're good to go. So Deh-Tai Limited Partnership, it's Fort Nelson First Nation formed the partnership back in 2018. They've been doing economic development, obviously, out there for years. Deh-Kah's been around for 40 plus years, so it's a lot of activity, but just with changing times, they decided to structure it as a general partner, limited partner structure. So it was set up at that point under the direction of a board of directors, which is made up of one member of Fort Nelson First Nation Council, one or more band members or nation members, and then some external directors. Their role is to manage the for-profit business. The nation is not for profit, but Deh-Tai is supposed to be making profits and generating profits, looking for employment and training for both the nation and the region. It's a separate legal entity of the nation that can hold and implement contracts to deliver goods and services and develop various businesses. And we have a variety of business partnerships and ventures that we are involved in at the moment. And the next slide will show the existing 8 companies that are in the group. Not included in that is the Peak Renewables wood pellet project, which is logging and pellet manufacture, as you're aware, a hydrogen project, and several other early stage initiatives that we're working on. So the way the company is structured at the moment is Deh-Tai LP or limited partnership is the hold co, the mothership, if you will. And then underneath that, there's a number of entities. So on the far left, you've got Deh, which is our construction company. There's Deh Gravel, which is a gravel pit on the reserve. Nelson River Outfitters is a guiding, hunting block or territory, just starts in Fort Nelson and goes off to the northwest. There's an entity called Naka Management. That particular company has not been set up, and underneath that, there are the 2 Fern Lake entities. So back in May of 2018, the nation bought Fort Nelson Hotel and 10 acres in downtown Fort Nelson, and it was decided at that point in time to separate it into a number of different businesses. So Fern Lake Residential Holdings, that's the trailer park and the townhouses that are on the back side of the property. Fern Lake Commercial holds all of the commercial assets. So that holds the actual hotel building, the motel building, the strip mall that's got the 6 bays in it, and the Bank of Nova Scotia building. And then the far right on there at the very top, 116 BC, I think it's 1160462 BC Limited. That's the actual business of the Fort Nelson Hotel. And that's just the way it's been split up for accounting and legal purposes. Deh Contracting is just a placeholder. Laird Holdings, that's the Hot Springs Lodge. And then there's Clark Lake Geothermal, which has captured all things that are related to the geothermal project and the associated businesses that they'll talk about in a few minutes. Holdco there, LP3 Qualicum. The nation was very astute a number of decades ago and bought a rather large tract of land on Vancouver Island, and that's called the Qualicum Base. So that's owned by the nation. We do manage it on their behalf. So the next slide, I've got a couple slides here that just goes into each business just a little bit. So Deh, it's a general contracting company. Probably everybody's seen the green building on the side of the highway, just at Church Road as you're coming into town, heading down to Musqueam Hill. It's specialized in oil field construction and land clearing. said a few minutes ago, it celebrated its 40th anniversary September last year. It continues to work in the oil field these days, doing primarily site cleanup. And it worked with Deh-Kah, or Clark Lake, our geothermal project. And what it was doing out there was we provided matting for the work that was done on the well site. We did road preparation, site preparation, things like that. In the past year, last year, we put $1.2 million into new equipment into the company, and that's a picture of some of them there. We got a small excavator, small dozer, a bigger dozer, brand new grader, and we're looking at putting close to another $1 million worth of new equipment into it again this year. So, continuing to replace equipment, upgrade our capacity, get prepared for what we hope is going to be a lot of work coming down the road fairly quickly. It does work closely with several environmental firms. We have some relationships with Ridgeline and QM and a few others. And we'll anticipate it's going to work with Deh Gravel, which is a sister company once the gravel pit is recertified for use. Next slide's got a lovely picture of the Fort Hotel taken in winter. I already covered the first point there about the Fort Nelson Hotel, what it is. The properties have undergone a lot of upgrades over the past 2 years. The biggest challenges we had for both this one and Liard, as you'll see in a minute, was the COVID shutdown, which basically shut down all travel through the town for a 2-year, basically 2-year stint, and then just finding staff. It's really hard to get people into work in the businesses up here. So what we did with that, we were very lucky. We were able to get a number of grants from the government to help with COVID assistance. These grants are available to all businesses. But with some of the money we got, we did some upgrades on the air conditioning system. The boiler system was upgraded a couple of years ago. We did a bit more work on it over the past 2 years. The bar was upgraded after it was purchased by the nation. We cleaned up the trailer park out back. Basically just doing a lot of repairs on the business that should have been done over the previous decade before we acquired it. One of the things that we were able to do with it is to keep looking for synergies amongst our companies. So when the work was going on in the field of the Clark Lake Geothermal project, we needed to have a work camp for the crews that were coming up. So we had 30 to 40 people on site at any one point in time. So the option was to use Black Diamond Dene or something like that and put a camp out in site, or use the Fort Hotel. So the hotel became our camp for the last 2 years. And I think we were able to put $500,000 to $600,000 worth of business revenue through that business and whatever spin-offs that provided for the town as well. Next slide is Liard Hot Springs Lodge. Most people have probably been up there. And if you haven't, it's well worth the trip. It's about a 4-hour drive up the highway to the west. It's 300 kilometers northwest of Fort Nelson. It's right across the highway from the provincial park where the hot springs are located. It's got 12 cabin-style rooms in the main lodge. It's got 20 pull-through RV sites with water and power to them. It's got 13 back-in RV sites, tenting sites, a restaurant, dining area. Similar to the Fort Hotel, the lockdowns really hurt that business. Our revenue dropped from 2019 to 2020 by 70%. It came back a little bit in 2021, a little more in 2022. So this year seems to be coming along a lot stronger. I think the RV park is booked solid for the entire summer already. And they're already taking reservations for next year. So there's a big demand, a pent-up demand for that. So we can see that business starting to get to the point where it's going to start generating some reasonable returns and then hopefully grow it. Over the past year, we were able to do a number of upgrades in that business as well. So we put about $100,000 into it. We put a new boiler system in it, water treatment, makeup air for the restaurant, replaced all the bedding, mattresses. What else? Hot water tank, renovated the kitchen, new stove, new things like that. So the inside of the kitchen, or the heart of it, if you will, is in really good shape right now. Now we're moving to the outside. We'll do some roof repairs, some windows, and we're looking at adding 8 to 10 cabins, putting them off behind the main lodge and trying to grow our footprint there, expand it and make it a more, just a better business. Two other businesses you probably never hear about, Nelson River Outfitters and Deh Gravel Pits. Nelson River Outfitters, it owns a license to guide hunters in the Northern Rockies region. It starts in Fort Nelson, follows the river up, and goes almost all the way to Toad. At the very end of the presentation is a chart just sort of showing where it is. It's got Tanner Whedon's name on it at the moment, or that particular chart does. We're in the process of developing the assets right now within the hunting territory and start working to establish a client base. One of the critical things was to move the license into a member's name that's with Fort Nelson First Nation. So Kevin Coche is the individual who's agreed to do that. And we're just working our way through that process with the BC government. Denny Gravel Pits is located on reserve land. It's just down Sickney Road. It operated for a number of years. Its extraction permit expired in 2018. Nothing was done with it for the last couple of years. We've spent the last year just working with the government, or actually the Crown, to get that re-permitted so we can start hauling gravel up in there again. It's kind of telling when you're dealing with the government. When you start, you're talking to the Queen, and now we're talking to King Charles about it. So it has taken a lot of time and effort to get us to this point. Peak Renewables wood pellet project. I was asking you a few minutes ago about that and what you know about that. I think probably everybody knows, but if you don't, I'll tell you anyways. Peak Renewables came in and they acquired the idled Takoma Mill and the Oriented Strand Board, or OSB plant in Fort Nelson, to be repurposed for a wood pellet manufacturing facility. So when I arrived here in November of 2020, the deal was already in place. There was a memorandum of understanding. This was all going to be, we're going to be out chopping trees down and making lumber and making wood pellets a year and a half ago. As things go, it's taken longer than that. It took about a year, I think, for the major forestry tenors to be committed by the BC government, which would enable the construction and operation of the pellet plant. And the plant and the associated logging operations, we're looking at providing probably 450 odd jobs, both in plant and in logging, when this thing gets up and rocking. So the construction is going to be a 600,000 metric ton per year pellet facility, and that's needed to, as it says there, crystallize. That's a great word the lawyers put in there, the forestry licenses. So Northern Rockies Regional Municipality and the First Nation together have the community forest, and there's certain tenors or certain amount of cut that's been pledged against this project from that. Peak bought the CAN4 licenses and some things that need to happen, i.e. this plant needs to get built for those all to move over. And then Fort Nelson First Nation itself has, I believe, the largest forest tenor in BC and probably Canada. And they've put some of that against that as well. So all told, there is a cutting program that's been agreed with the government, and it follows the land management framework that's been developed by the First Nation. In terms of how logging is going to be done, how it's going to be replanted, and all those things, and how the asset's going to be managed. So the government has their standard, and there's the nation standard, which is actually higher, and that's been agreed to and written right into all the agreements. So real good use of both the traditional knowledge plus the science that they've got. The global wood pellet market is expected to double in size within the next 8 years. That's a statement there. I've been approached by 2 other firms that are also interested in doing wood pellet projects. So stay tuned. Those discussions are ongoing right now. The only thing that seems to be holding it back at the moment is the railway transportation between Fort Nelson and Fort St. John. So it's been negotiated with CN Rail, how it's going to be operated, where the product is going to go. It'll go from here down to Buick. There'll be a marshalling yard built down there. So all of that's been agreed, but the roadbed needs to be upgraded at a cost of about $70 million. So under the NTCF, National Trade Corridors Fund, they've said that they would match up to $35 million. So you put $1 on the table, they'll match it up to a total of $35 million from their side. So that gives us a 70 we need. So this is the kind of project that we're looking into as part of Deh-Tai. It's something that's got impact, it's scalable, and provides a lot of employment opportunities. So we have monthly meetings on that particular one just to keep all the parties involved talking together on it. When it first started out, the wood pellets were going to be produced and then shipped off to Japan. That was the original off-taker. Since that time, there's been a hydrogen plant announced as the off-taker. So the hydrogen plant is charging ahead. They're doing their work right now. They're doing the front-end engineering design. We've got tens of millions of dollars lined up for that right now, doing all of that work. So just need to get that railway to unlock it all. And this, Taylor, is where you can jump all over me if I misspeak. This is the Deh-Kah project. Deh-Kah is hot water steam in Deh-Tai.
Depending what elder you ask, but roughly, yeah.
Okay. I heard hot water steam, hot water river, heat from the ground. As you can see the little chart there, the little map, it shows that as you go through the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin, you move from southwest Manitoba across Saskatchewan into Alberta and into northeastern BC, the temperature in the reservoir gets hotter and hotter. And it's been known for years that the Clark Lake field was a very warm field or hot field. Evidence of that was in the wintertime. You'd look at it, there'd be no snow under any of the pipelines above ground, no snow on them around it, even at -40, -50. So there's been a lot of work done in the area, a lot of looking was done at it, and enough study was done that by the time I got here, the project was already in its infancy, and they managed to get some dollars lined up to start looking at it. So it's 100% owned by Fort Nelson First Nation. And there's 4 employees working for the company. All 4 are First Nation. It's underneath what used to be known as, or historically, the Clark Lake gas field. So Canlin has the rights to the gas above where we're working. We have the geothermal rights in the basement. So they're down producing gas out of 1.8 kilometers down. We're down 2.5, 2.6 kilometers. And that's where the hot brine is that we're pulling up. We're targeting generation of power 7 to 10 megawatts. That'll depend on the parasitic load, how much power has to go to run the electric submersible pumps that are going to be used to pull the brine out of the ground. We're looking at direct heat opportunities. We're targeting commercial operation 2026. And to date, we've had very significant federal and provincial support. There's a listing of some of the organizations there that have provided funding, but to date, we've got $45 million worth of approved funding for the project, which is being put into the project over a series of years. So the next slide will show you what we've accomplished so far. It's a 7-phase project or 6-phase project. Phase 2 is complete, which was resource analysis and conceptual engineering. Phase 3 is complete. That was the permitting and the drilling of the doublet wells. When you say doublet wells, one is a producing well and one is an ejector well. So you bring the hot fluid to the surface. When the plant is up and running, you'll bring the hot fluid to the surface, run it through a heat exchanger, extract the heat energy, and then put the cooled off fluid back into the reservoir. So it's a closed system from that perspective. So where we are right now is phase 4, and we finished our well testing. And what we're doing right now is working on bankability feasibility study or bankable feasibility study. So there's a number of geothermal projects around the world, numbering in the hundreds. And what banks want to see is 2 things when you go to get financing for a project like this. One is, can you get deliverability of high volumes of fluid out of the wells? And we did that January a year ago. And we were able to pump 125 liters per second was coming out of the ground. So big well, it's 20 inches diameter surface. It had a 1600 horsepower electric submersible pump in it, and turn that thing on, and it was able to bring a lot of water up very quickly. Yeah. And then the next thing they want to see is, okay, now that you've proven you can deliver that big volume, can you do it on a sustainable basis? And that was the next testing that we had to do. So in summer, we went back in last summer, reconfigured the ESP so it pumped a bit slower, and we managed to pump as required 30, 31 days at about just under 30 liters per second. And the combination of those 2 shows that you have an economically viable and developable resource. So on that basis, we're now working our way through the next steps. So the check marks at the top are all things that have been done. We engineered, we drilled a full-size geothermal production well, we repurposed the gas well for injection. The testing was done. So right now we're going through well field design and engineering. So we went out for a call for bids. We talked to 6 different firms. We have Mercedes working on it. They're based out of San Francisco. They've been involved in about half of all geothermal projects in the world. They've been involved in them. They focused on California for the first 20 years of operation, then they spread out. So they've done work all over the place. And they've been in Iceland, and they've been in Patagonia. They've been in New Zealand doing things. When we had them up here it was January for a visit, Fort Nelson has the distinction of letting the two people that came from San Francisco say, this is the coldest place we have ever been. We've been to Iceland, we've been to all these other places, but this place is freaking cold. So we made it quite an impression on them.
Did they show up with the clothes they would wear at the beach? Is that?
They were bundled up like a little kid with the strings and the mittens, the whole works, and they were still freezing the cushions off. I mean,
Yes.
we were down in North River midstream, and one of the fellows down there said, well, it was -50 before Christmas, and they couldn't believe it. Anyway, they're a very competent firm. They've already asked a lot of good questions. They've been working with Camlin and others, and I think they're going to do a very, very good job. We're working our way through the environmental permitting studies that need to be done, licensing studies, front-end engineering on the surface facilities is underway right now. There's a working committee that's set up. We've got a couple members of the Energy Mines and Low Carbon Initiatives on it. We've got people from Deh-Kah. We've got some power specialists and BC Hydro. So we're working our way through what an EPA is going to look like for this electricity purchase agreement. And that'll be another piece that we need to get in place this year. So the plan is to get all that done. Next year, we're planning on drilling out the fields. So that'll be another, I think, 5 production wells and another 2 or 3 injection wells. The original well doublet that we drilled will be used as part of the production process. So we could end up with 5 to 6 producers and 3 to 4 injectors, all on the very northwest corner of the Clark Lake field. So all pretty close to where we are right now. If you look at the subsurface, there's an old reef structure down there, very, very high porosity and permeability, and that's where we're drilling into. So you got a lot of fluid flow through there. In case you're interested, subsurface temperature is about 127 degrees Celsius. We were bringing it to the surface after 30 days of testing at about 114, 115. To do geothermal, as we're trying to do with a binary cycle, you need to have at least 80 degrees Celsius. So we're well within the parameters. So next year, we'll be drilling the field out. The year after will be the actual construction of the ORC, as they call it, the Organic Rankine Cycle facility. And then Q1 of 2026, all things being equal, we'll turn it on and start generating electrons. 7 megawatts would be enough to handle the whole local market in Fort Nelson as it is right now without the peak renewable project. The next slide was a slide that was put in. Do you want to talk about that one, Cindy, or do you want me just to keep rolling?
You go ahead. I can add some things if you like.
Okay. Cindy is, she's involved, as she said, in the development and training aspects of this project. So what we've done is we're going through and we've identified for 2024, phase 5 is well field development. What kind of jobs do we need? What kind of work is needed or workers are needed? And then do we have them locally? And if not, can we build them? So the jobs we've identified are drilling and well service work, heavy equipment operators, site safety, environmental monitoring, engineering and management roles. For the field work that's coming up, 2025, we're looking at civil road works, pipeline installation, tree clearing, some labor positions, again, site safety. And then you're moving into actual construction. So welders, pipe fitters, electricians, millwrights, instrumentation, scaffolding. And then we've done a number of training initiatives, January, February, we ran a number of courses. We went through a driver level 1?
A learner's preparation to get your class driver.
Right, just basically testing what, people interested in that, we'll run them through this course first. If they are, then look to sponsor them to get their full license. And we're continuing to do that. And then we've also started looking at the plant now. So when the plant's up and running, what does that look like? I think we've determined that's about 30-ish odd people.
Yeah, 30, around 30.
So that's a combination of operators, maintenance people, management.
So we anticipate that we're going to need at least a dozen gas plant operators. That will be the foundation of our employment, but we'll also need instrumentation and controls technicians, millwrights, as well as all your other standard operating roles like HR, finance. We'll be looking at schedulers and planners, warehousing and procurement. And there's going to be a lot of spin-off opportunities related to the project. So yeah, we're looking at least 30 regular jobs coming out of the project once operation starts.
Thank you. And then the next slide, which is my second to last. So Deh-Kah has got some associated initiatives. So this is some of what Cindy was just alluding to, I think. So we did an agriculture project, and that's nearing completion right now. So we got some funding to do that, and we put a call out for steering committee. Danny, Councillor Souls was involved in the steering committee. That was open to everybody in both communities to participate in. So they went through and they took a look and said, what do you want to grow up here? What do you want to see in a greenhouse? What is possible up here? You know, we're in zone 3A, planting zone. So what can we do? The First Nation has a small community farm. It's about 156 acres just down on the river flats right beside the river. It's been in hay production for the last number of years. I believe it was in vegetable production at one point in the past. So the agriculture project, a couple of the outcomes or the deliverables out of that, there was a field vegetables business plan that was prepared. So that 40-page document we've got in the binder here. There was a greenhouse production plan as well, saying you've got this heat that's going to be available from the Deh-Kah project. So you're going to have heat, you're going to have power, you're going to have CO2, all the things you need for a greenhouse. We've got lots of land out there. So basically, how many greenhouses do you want to build? So we're exploring that right now. There was a number of workshops. There's 4 or 5 workshops that have been held so far. Canning, tea blending, pine salve, and there's another couple planned. So there's some more workshops planned as part of that as well. And what we're looking at doing now is, because the study is winding down, we've got these 2 business plans basically. We're going to pilot them this year. So we're going to work with Councillor Souls, go down and plant some field crops. We're looking at potatoes, carrots, I think onions this year. So if we plant, I think it's 4 or 5 acres, that'll provide enough food for the entire First Nation in those particular categories. So it doesn't take a lot to really do that. So basically, see if we can get some people that are interested in doing that, do a test on it, see how that works. Do the hay again this year because there's demand for hay out there. But start looking at making the farm bigger. What else can we grow down there? How big do we want to make it? And then the greenhouses, we're looking at building a single greenhouse in this year just to try that out again. Let's get some people involved in it, see how it works. I know Yukon Souls has got his greenhouses, but we'll try one out there. We're looking at it from the perspective you have food security for the nation, food security for the region. If you make it big enough, make it bigger yet, we can start exporting food out of Fort Nelson. When I go to the grocery store, I can eat Chilean grapes and avocados and things from Mexico. Why can't we ship food out of Fort Nelson if we can grow it year round at a low cost to make money at it? We can send it south or we can send it north. We do have an airport here. And the other thing, when the logging gets up and running and we start getting the wood pellet projects going, we are going to have to replant all that forest. So Twin Sisters Moberly has got greenhouses down there that can grow the indigenous species that are needed. We can do that just as well up here. So that's the agriculture side that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, it could be. I'm really, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking at an onsen spa. So that's a Japanese spa. A gentleman named Mike Sato, who's been involved, I think, in about 100 of these things. He's Japanese, as his name would indicate. He's come up a couple of times. He's looked at the area and said, yeah, there's some beautiful spots where you get all the, I'm not sure cheese is the right word, but everything lines up. You got a view of the river valley and you can see the forest. You can see all these wonderful things. He took a couple water samples. There's a very distinctive way you need to do it to be certified by the Japanese onsen body that exists. So took all those samples and sent it over to Japan, and they went through it, tested it, and came back, said, yeah, water coming out of the ground, its pH is, I think, 6.5 to 7.2. So it's just around neutral. It's a heavy salt brine. Once you degasify it, because it has a small amount of, well, it's got some CO2 and a little bit of nitrogen and sour gas fields, there's a little bit of H2S, but once you get all the gases out of it, the Japanese have determined that it would be absolutely perfect for spa. So that's something we're looking at doing, just trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to put that and how many do we need to build?
Why would you even think of reaching out to the Japanese to do that? Like, it's ingenious. Like, the ideas are great, but like, how did you even get on down that road?
We have a group called Barclay Project Management. So they're the ones that came, we've hired them. I don't know a lot about geothermal. Barclay didn't either, but they know a lot about power and doing projects like this. So they reached out to Mike Sutton. They've come across him in a number of other places they work. So.
And can I also add that this Mike guy, they redid the Tahini Hot Springs in Whitehorse, the Clip Spa. So Mike Sato was the one that designed that. So he was passing by here however many times he needed to get to Whitehorse during the pandemic. So
Yeah, it's awesome. Just the value added options. Like I wouldn't have never thought of that. Like it's awesome.
Well, that's a good one. I like that particular one because then you've got a spa right here in town. It's local. You know, people come up, they come to see the spa here. Well, you want to see another great one? Well, there's another one just up. You want a natural one? There's one up the highway for the air. So try and make it a draw like the one you just mentioned, Taylor. And then we're looking at exploring other opportunities, building heat. You can heat buildings with the heat that comes out of the ground. You can look at infrastructure. Again, the greenhouses. How many do we want to build? There's a number of other things we're looking at inside Deh-Tai, potentially a joint venture with one of the local firms on helicopter ownership and operating, because we have a lot of demand for helicopters, both in the nation for work that's being done by the lands department. There is some logging. There's a lot of mining activity up here with the copper mines. There's a couple other groups are looking at coming into the region to take a look at other critical minerals that are available here. There's about 4 different companies looking at carbon capture and sequestration up here as well. So there's a lot of activity going on. We're just trying to basically define, you know, how does it work? Does it make sense and things like that. Well, that's all I brought.
That's all?
There's two pretty pictures beyond this if you want them. But,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim. That was a great update.
yes. Right there, that's Fort Nelson. This territory. Actually, guiding on the territory, we've got the notion. The last pink wall.
All right.
It's that Tammy. It's got nice and sharp.
And which river does that flow?
That should be the Nelson River up to the Liard, probably, or the Toad at least. Yeah, yeah. And the pink area is just all of the outfitting, registered outfitters. Is that because I can't see it from? Yeah, that's okay.
That's all.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. So we've got a few things on the go.
And that's the side. I have like a million questions. Some technical, some just wow, you know, and you know, some maybe you don't want to answer some of them, but I think I heard you start with construction and then tourism, business, energy, forestry, food production, flight operations. I mean, you guys have really diversified your community and a potential for the economy as a whole. And I am an absolute believer that a rising tide floats all boats, that whoever is investing in the region and investing in that economic development is going to benefit the entire region. And just the scale of the ideas that you guys have is amazing. And you know, I certainly would like to thank Deh-Kah, the company, as well as the community chief and council with respect to their willingness to invest in this community, their community, and the region. It's so forward looking. So that's just my first off comment that I'd like to say, and I'm sure there are others before. I mean, I do have a couple of technical questions that you might be able to answer for me, but is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment before I ask a couple of technical questions?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's like so encouraging to hear positive, forward-thinking momentum, you know, because my experience has been a lot of negative talk. So this is just, I just so appreciate you coming here and sharing. And then I'm just wondering if in fact we have the trade show coming up on May the 4th, 6th and 7th, sorry. And just from this, the community of Fort Nelson, if you were able to have like presentation like this going.
We got two booths.
Sorry?
We're confirmed for 2 booths.
Oh, good, because to share this good news, I think would just be wonderful for the community of Fort Nelson so that, you know, there's positive things happening and just to combat some of that constant negative.
Absolutely. I think, yes, we'll be at the trade show. I meant to acknowledge Jamie Capablanc in our introductions. He was unable to be here today. But him and I were the first employees of Deh-Kah almost 2 years ago now. And to see where this project has come is really exciting. But this is our first time we've been able to share about the project to the town of Fort Nelson. I've talked about this project in Ottawa and Vancouver, Calgary, and I just have Egypt, New Zealand. And yeah, so I just, very open to any avenue that you suggest that we can share this at, because we do want to share this with the region, because this is, I think, a project that everyone can be involved in. We want them to be involved in. So
Very exciting. Anybody else? Please, Councilor next.
I don't know how anybody else would feel, but could we have a tour out there one day? I'll leave that with you.
Not a lot to see at the moment. It's a well site with gripping wellhead sitting there, but the answer is yes.
Yes. Yes. When they've got something to show us, I can just imagine a couple of wells and a couple of shacks right now. Yeah.
Oh, but we're proud of everything we're doing. A lot of people are just working their butts off, and it's, as you say, very supportive council, very supportive board, fabulous team. So,
Well, and like Lorraine said, it's so nice to hear the positive. I'd heard this you have changed it since last October a little bit, since we were down in Fort St. John, but to hear the positive, because there is so much negative in town. So thank you for that.
So I was wondering about the wells, just because I used to work out there, and I, you know, as a kid, that was one of the things we did in D&B was insulate those pipes out there, because it was so hot with the gas coming out of the ground, you couldn't touch it, you burned yourself. And so I'm wondering, so did you say that it was a 2 strings in the same well, so a production string and then an intermediate injection string, or is it 2 different wells?
2 separate wells.
So then what about the transfer underground? Is that what the test was, to ensure that when you're putting the cold fluid in, is it going into a different formation, or is it actually migrating through the same formation, heating up and coming back again? Is that potential there?
Both wells were, the gas well, we bought an existing gas well, or sorry, a depleted gas well. Let's be accurate about that. And it was about 1,926 meters deep. So that was down to just below the slave point. So there wasn't enough energy left there anymore in the gas to push the water to surface. So it was basically shut in. So we took that, we put the Akita Rig 31 on it, and then we drilled that down to 2456. And I know the numbers because I was looking at them about 2 days ago, and I have I remember numbers. Sorry. So then what we did was we skidded the rig over 20 feet or 20 meters, and literally skidded it. They got a couple of trucks and just dragged this thing with the mast up over, and then we drilled the production well. It went down, and then we deviated it out 300 meters at the bottom. So there's separation of about 1/3 of a kilometer underground.
Same level though? Same depth?
Same depth. Yeah,
Same
they're
depth.
both within 2-3 meters of being exactly the same depth. So they went right down to the basement of the granite wash, they call it. So down to the Sulphur Point, Chinchaga, and all the rest of the formations down there. Both wells are at the very bottom of the wells. They're just open hole finish. So the case down to a certain depth, and then after that, it's just open through formation.
Yeah. So which means that you have migration of fluid, cold fluid back between the 2 wells. which means that you've got the closed circuit that you talked about. It's a closed loop.
Yeah.
But as long as the earth is hot down there, it'll continue to close loop for as long. It's not like it can deplete, right? It continues to recharge itself, and because it's not the pressure of the gas that's bringing it to the surface, you're actually pumping it.
Yeah.
So as long as you're able to pump it, you're able to make electricity to pump it. So then
So to further answer your question, one of the things that we did with the injection, once we got the cycle up and running and it was, we're producing and the formation is actually, it's on vacuum, it's sucking the fluid back in
Yeah.
because they've taken 3 trillion cubic feet of gas out of the formation over the years. We injected dye into the injector and watched for traces of it to show up at the production well. So over a 28 or 29 day period, 0 dye showed up. So the reservoir engineers who've got working on the project have gone through and done their analysis and said, yes, you will eventually see some communication between the injector and the producing well, but they anticipate that's going to be 30 years from now.
Oh, so
And
it
then
really has a long time to warm.
It's got a long
Yeah.
time before anything's going to happen. And that's just the first doublet. The future, the other doublets we're planning on drilling now will be separated out. We don't have to have them close together. So there'll be a producer, then 1.5 kilometers away will be an injector. So the actual chance of communication is going to be basically 0. And the whole Clark Lake field has got a giant active water drive aquifer under there pushing up against it. So that's where we're pulling the brine out of right now.
So you've got 30 years before you really even have to worry about it.
Yeah, you probably got about 1 billion years before you I mean,
As long as
seriously, it's just not going to go off under there.
Yeah.
What's going to wear out will be your casing and things like that that'll need to be replaced over time. So this will be the first plant, and if it's successful and we start saying, well, maybe we want to do some crypto mining, maybe we want to get into a giant data storage center. Maybe Elon Musk needs to have a place to have something set up. So you want a place where it's cold. Well, Fort Nelson is cold, and then you got geothermal, sustainable base load power there. So those are things too. Jamie's looking at those ones. So.
So that 10 megawatts of power, I think you said, between 7 and 10.
7 to 10.
So what's net after you've pumped? Because you got to, or that is net after you've driven your pumps and.
Net will be 6 to about 8-ish.
Yeah. From one well or from the series?
From the series.
From the series of wells. Yeah. So it is scalable if it's the more wells you put in, the more power you can.
No, exactly. If you take a look at Deep Energy's got their project in southern Saskatchewan. They're doing 2 phases in their project. The first one's going to be 5 megawatts, and then they're going to drill a couple more wells, and the second phase is 20 megawatts.
Right. And you need 80 degrees centigrade minimum.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you're at 140, I think you said, at 120 after a month.
We're 127 in formation. Surface, it was we're measuring at 114, 115.
Yeah. So here I go in the greenhouse. So that if you got 80 left, now that's 80 degrees Celsius. So that's that.
Yeah.
And you can go all the way down to what, 20 for greenhouse operations?
Oh yeah. So we're going to keep stripping heat out of this. So there'll be direct use heat. You can use the greenhouses. You can use the spa. I mean, you're not going to make a spa that hot. You roast people, but what you're really doing is you're harvesting the heat out of there. So it's like oil and gas, but you're bringing heat up. That's what you're really after. And because it's a low grade geothermal resource, it's not like the stuff that you saw in New Zealand. New Zealand, their temperatures are running at 250 Celsius and higher. Or 300, I think, 350. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so they're running very hot because that's volcanic.
Volcanic, yeah.
So we were bringing ours up and we run it through the organic Rankine cycle. So it's what they do is the heat exchanger. One side you've got the brine, which comes up, circulates through back in the ground, and then the other side you've got your working fluid. In this case, the working fluid will be probably pentane or isobutane,
which drives generators, turbines,
which will drive the turbine because that'll flash off the steam at about 85 degrees Celsius. That makes your steam, drives your generator. And then when you take a look at the plant, there's a couple heat exchangers sitting there, and the rest of it's just cooling towers, air cooled fans to cool the working fluid back down to liquid so you can capture the heat again.
So, so are you moving water?
Note that the mayor shivered.
Are you moving water to the greenhouses? Because your farm operation is across the river from this. So are you moving hot water across the river, or are you putting the greenhouse operations on the geothermal side of the river.
That's to be determined. You can do it, you can do it either way. And then
Yeah.
when you go right on the reserve, there are 3 or 4 old wells there that could be converted over to disposal wells. So we could take it across the river or under the river, whatever's most appropriate.
Because you have
Extract
some
the heat.
opportunity for heat loss there, but you've got the,
Oh, you can
the
extend.
volume, you can go from 80 to 20, so you got 60 degrees Celsius potential
Okay,
heat
yeah.
loss there, so
Yeah.
an insulated pipeline would get it across there.
Oh, easily.
Cool.
And then if you look, everything we're doing, we're looking for, well, we're looking for synergies for everything we do. So if you take a look at where our geothermal license it goes right underneath the industrial park. So the heat still goes over there as well. So Peak gets running down there with their wood pellet project. They need heat for the log warming pond. What's to say you can't drill another geothermal well there and just bring the heat up and use the heat to keep that from freezing over the winter.
Right.
That's a cost they don't have to incur anymore.
So
So
what-
make that better.
Once you have proved the technology, once you've proved it, you really can use it anywhere in that basin, essentially, anywhere in that basin. You've got the
Exactly.
rights to the basin, so anywhere that basin is, you essentially could,
We don't have rights to the entire field, but the chunk that we've got is the northwest corner right now.
yeah,
Chunk.
cool.
Our land base. Technical term, sorry.
Okay, please.
Just a quick question about the rail. Are you confident that that rail bed is going to get developed to the level that we need it to?
I am. I think it's gonna have to happen. There's the hydrogen project, the way it's being designed right now, it's hydrogen naturally. It's Ian McGregor, Northwest Capital Partners. I'm not sure if you've met with him or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Oh, yeah.
He
We
built
haven't this term. but
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so he built the Sturgeon refinery, so he understands the technology. He's raising the money for it. It's a $2 billion project right out of the gates. And that's, I think with the first 2 trains, they're looking at building an 8-train plant and they want to do it 100% green. They want it to be bright green. So they want it to be carbon negative actually. So they need the wood source to do that. They need the pellets to do that. And we're looking for a home for long-term supply of the pellets, which does 2 things. It frees up the, we can take all the offcuts and everything we don't want. That can be turned into pellets and that's usable. And then you've got the lumber side. Well, then the next step to that obviously is to get a sawmill up here, start doing what we used to do up here. But I think it's all going to happen. There's 2 or 3 different ways that can be funded. So we've been working with hydrogen naturally about what maybe we can do some offsets, and there's a bunch of pieces in play right now, but I think it's going to happen. And I'm looking forward to that because then we've got the copper mines up here that
Yeah.
are looking at getting going again. We've got, there's a calcium fluoride deposit that looked at being developed up here. That's a critical mineral for Canada. There's a number of activities.
There's bentonite moving down the highway in bulk right now. Yeah.
So why don't we put that all in rail and get it going down that way?
But the
Yeah.
province isn't very interested in helping with that portion, like with the rail portion. So,
Not particularly at the
No,
moment.
so-
Their statements have been, I think, along the lines of our contribution to this project has been the forest center. So
yeah,
those discussions are ongoing.
Which is not one red nickel.
over our dead bodies.
It's not one red nickel. It's not one, they haven't invested a single bit of cash. It's just a tenure that they've given.
Yeah.
That upsets me a little bit. Maybe some other people too. Okay, are there any other questions? There's just so much potential here. It's amazing. Is there anything we can do to help? But, yeah, okay. Yes, please. Just so the folks on the recording can hear you. Thank you.
Bev Anderson, Chamber of Commerce. That was very exciting. Thank you so much. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things, and I know Taylor, you and I have spoken many moons ago. The Chamber would be happy to help connect with the community through either hosting an in-person or a virtual meeting, whatever works. We can figure out times, but certainly happy to do that. And happy you're in the treasure. And then I also had a question about rail. Just Jim, you mentioned the NTSF funding. Has that actually been approved, or is it still in the works?
There was the original application went in, there was an addendum went into that. last I thought I heard was that it was
Okay,
provisionally approved.
well, that's good.
I mean, basically, yeah, we got money for you if you have your money to put next to it.
Right.
Oh, perfect.
That's the public information is that if you have money to go with it,
Okay,
of course, that only lasts so long,
yes.
right? They'll
Yeah,
spend that
returns
money
and stuff.
somewhere else.
There's, yeah,
you know.
finite timelines for sure.
Hopefully it doesn't disappear tomorrow, which is the end of the fiscal year for governments.
And if there is just anything from the chamber perspective that we can do to help through support or through anything else, we've been working on rail, as everyone knows, since I believe 2013. So please keep us in mind. We're happy to support. Thanks.
So that's where my question was going to. Is there anything that we're able to do to assist you moving this forward in any way, shape, or form? I know we're working together with the chief and council on the railroad, but I wonder if there's anything we need to do to help Deh-Kah. Keep us in mind. I mean, I didn't want to put you on spot, but it's know that you have a willing partner, I think, in us, and we're prepared to do what we can, within the requirements of the municipal act, or I guess it's the local government act now, and the community charter. But if there are, any kind of efforts, lobbying or otherwise that you'd like, if you'd like us to speak to any of your investors about what it's like to be here, I think we're prepared to do whatever we can to assist you moving forward. Oh, Lisa, I'm sorry. I was excited. I'm also kind of
Sorry, as we're wrapping down. Thank you for meeting with us yesterday, Taylor. So looking forward to following up on that. And just a plug for the 4-minute, I think it is a 4-minute video that you have on your website. It's an awesome video. So if you haven't seen it, it's really good. But my question is around lithium. So if there's been any kind of investigation around the potential for lithium production as part of this project.
I can sign. Yes, there has been. When you take a look at the water samples coming up, there is lithium in it, as you would anticipate. There's actually a big study going on in Alberta where they're getting water samples from all the wells. It's kind of map where it is. Ours up here, if you had to go and drill a hole in the ground, pull lithium out, pull the brine up to separate out the lithium, it's not economic. But in our case, because we're bringing the brine to the surface anyway, and if we just run it through an absorption tower of some sort, we would then be able to extract the lithium and it would be economic. So it is something we're looking at. We've partnered up with the University of Alberta back about almost 2 years ago. So we have a virtual geothermal lab is actually set up with Professor Nick Harris, Daniel Lacey, and a few other professors there. So we're going through some work right now on what that might look like and what would be the best process to do that, to extract the lithium out of that. Because the amount of lithium that's there is, again, not economic if you have to bring it to the surface, but there's enough volume of water coming to the surface, it could be quite a good business.
And obviously, really prevalent nowadays around, electric vehicles and battery powered things. So yeah, I just wondered if that was part of the plan. Thank you.
Oh, no, we're looking at that. So you got lithium for that, and then you got Churchill and Davies Keys mines. So the copper mines just the west of town here. So that's, we can build our own little electric cars up here pretty soon.
Yeah.
We should get the power, copper and everything else.
Yeah, they're all critical minerals, and there's places that haven't even been explored most of the exploration is happening over on the west side, but it's the same essential mountain range, right? So it's formed essentially at the same time. So the potential is there for sure, providing that they can do it in a sustainable way, right? Any final comments? I'm conscious of time. There's 1 o'clock. I'll leave the final words to you. Jim, ladies, anything?
Just a Mussy Cho, thank you for having us, and knowing that we have your full support is really encouraging. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we've got so much on the go that Cindy's going to be scouring around looking for people fairly quickly here. So all these projects go ahead. There's not enough houses in town. You have to build some more.
Yeah. And the transferable, yeah, we have the transferable, we didn't talk about it. Transferable skills necessary, you know, are we have people who have those skills here in this region, whether you're or they come from families who do and are certainly willing to train up because that's been in their family. And yeah. Very okay.
Sorry,
Last word.
I know we're over a little bit, but has there been any conversations with Northern Lights College regarding training, or are you headed in a different way?
We are working with Northern Lights College. Just in May, actually, we're planning an essential technology course out on the reserve. Just getting people up to speed with modern technology. We know that there's going to be all sorts of supportive roles. And right now it's an opportune time to build capacity within our communities. So yes, we are working with Northern Lights College. But that said, we're working with a number of other education partners. One, for example, is called Relay Education. They're a nonprofit, a federal nonprofit, and they have been our partners in delivering a virtual career series that wrapped up last night. But I just want to reaffirm what Mr. Mayor said around the competencies with regard to geothermal are very, very similar to the oil and gas sector. Very, very similar. Unfortunately, Jamie's not here today, but one of his key taglines is repurposing oil and gas assets.
Yes.
So we are not only repurposing the oil and gas wells, but you know the
People.
Human resource.
the human resources, and we're trying to help shift the view of renewable energy and their green economy. Because they're good jobs. It doesn't have to be a dirty word in resource-based communities. There's room for everybody here. So I just wanted to highlight, I don't know, Jim didn't mention it, but I don't know if the table is aware that we are one of 2 projects in the country. We are one of 2 projects that's proved feasibility. And that's really exciting. That has the opportunity to place us on the map. We could potentially be the first.
We're pushing hard.
We're trying real hard to be the first. So we can use all the help we can get for sure.
Good.
Yeah, and as Cindy said too, we're looking for a way. You have all these oil and gas fields that are depleting across the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin. So this is the first time it's been done in a carbonate basin, and it's make this a success. It can be transferred all across the prairies. And you saw that heat map. It can go across the prairies and up into the Yukon as well. So not a lot of oil and gas up there, but definitely the heat's there. But we could go back and reclaim a lot of oil and gas fields and reuse, exactly as you said, human resource and the infrastructure that exists.
It's very, very exciting. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Taylor, and thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think there's only a little bit left there's no new business to deal with. Is there anybody from media or the public that's on the line? There is a question? None with questions. Okay. Then we'll adjourn. Thank you very much. You're free to join us for a little bit of lunch there if you like. Thank you very much for coming.